In this Remnant 2 video, I will show you a DPS build that utilizes critical hits in order to shred through enemies and make light work of bosses throughout the game. You want to make sure you watch each part of the build carefully because every aspect synergizes to make the final product. Before we get into the build, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you already haven't done so. For some reason the YouTube algorithm hates this channel, so by showing your support, you help promote these types of informative gaming videos on the platform and bring this variety of content right to you. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Both the Hunter and the Gunslinger are DPS archetypes that provide enhancing buffs through both their skills and passives. When paired together, we are coupling fast fire rates with increased critical hit chance, allowing you to deal a significant amount of damage in a short amount of time. The Gunslinger contains skills and passives that revolve around an increased fire rate and reload speed, as well as an increased ammo reserve, critical hit chance, and range damage. The skill I chose for this archetype is called Bullet Storm. This skill increases fire rate by 20% and reload speed by 50%. In order to unlock the Gunslinger archetype, you will need to obtain the Worn Cylinder from Mudtooth. This can be done by asking Mudtooth about his stories multiple times. You will need to exhaust his dialogue after completing the first world and visiting the labyrinth, and later after completing the third world. The Hunter contains skills and passives that improves the build's overall firepower through its range damage and critical hit chance. The skill I chose for this archetype is called Hunter's Mark. This skill gives you a 15% buff to all ranged and melee damage and allows you to see through walls. This ability gives your party information, allowing you to take advantage before each encounter. I would recommend starting this build out as the Hunter archetype. However, if you choose a different class, do not worry. You can purchase the Rusty Metal from Barbarous in Ward 13 and craft the Hunter's Ingram. The primary weapon for this build is the Chicago Typewriter. This weapon boasts a good and consistent baseline damage, fire rate, accuracy, and magazine size. In order to acquire the Chicago Typewriter, you must first defeat the Labyrinth Sentinel boss and obtain the Biome Portal key from the Keeper. Once you have the key, you want to follow the path shown on screen from the Entangled Gauntlet checkpoint within the labyrinth. Eventually you'll reach a portal to a separate area within Ward 13, where you'll find the Chicago Typewriter. Hotshot is the weapon mod I've chose for this build. This is done for two reasons. First, the ammunition becomes imbued with fire. This allows us to apply the burning effect to enemies, therefore increasing the overall performance of the weapon. This also allows enemies to consistently lose HP even during reloads or while switching targets. The second reason I chose this weapon mod is due to its commonly overlooked ability that increases range damage by 15%. The combination of these abilities make this mod the perfect choice for this build. For our mutator, I've chosen Momentum. This allows us to further capitalize on critical hits. Every time the player lands a critical hit, this mutator increases both critical chance and critical damage by 3% up to 10 stacks. At level 10, this mutator allows 2 more stacks and a 2-second longer duration. For our secondary weapon, we're using the handgun Sorrow. This weapon excels in medium to long range combat by allowing for precise strikes against enemies. Sorrow has the unique ability titled Eulogy. This ability calls its bolts back to the wielder. Recalled bolts will deal additional damage from the respective target and grant the player a heal. Recalled bolts will also overfill your magazine with up to 5 additional bolts. For our mutator, I've chosen Battery. This allows us to further capitalize on using ranged hits. This mutator increases the next weak spot hit by 20% per stack. At level 10, the next weak spot hit will deal 15% additional damage over 3 seconds. Due to its viability and resource management, I consider this handgun to be one of the best in the entire game. Sorrow can be acquired on Yesha by trading the Tear of Keula with Mitra. For our melee weapon, we're using the Spectral Blade. This weapon comes equipped with a unique mod titled Whirlwind. This attack is activated by channeling a charged melee after a backstep. This weapon can be crafted by using the Eidolian Shard obtained from defeating Shahala the Spectral Guardian on Nerud. I think this is one of the coolest looking melee weapons in the game. Whenever I use this weapon in a co-op session, other players always take note. The mutator on this weapon is Overdrive. This mutator works in a similar way to Battery. For each melee critical hit, this mutator increases both critical chance and critical damage, and at level 10, the critical strikes deal 20% additional damage. For the trait points, including the archetype bonuses, I have 10 points into ammo reserves for the ammo reserve, 10 points into long shot for the increased damage range, 10 points into vigor for the increased health, 10 points into endurance for the increased stamina, 10 points into spirit for the mod power generation, 10 points into expertise for the skill cooldown, 10 points into bark skin for the damage reduction, 10 points into handling for the reduced weapon spread and recoil, 5 points into fitness for the greater evasion distance, and 5 points into recovery for the stamina regeneration. The armor on this build exists for pure aesthetic reasons. You can run whichever armor set you prefer in terms of look, weight class, or defense. However, I like the way the High Noon armor set looks on this build, as it completes the Cowboy Gunslinger. This set can be purchased from the armor merchant Whispers once you've unlocked the Gunslinger archetype. The amulet and rings on this build are of the utmost importance. This is what makes the build essentially work. You will do decent damage by just using the weapons in the archetype. However, this aspect of the build is what I believe takes it to the next level. In our amulet slot, we're using the Ankh of Power. This amulet grants the player a 15% increase to all damage. By consuming a relic, you double that bonus for 15 seconds. I believe this is without a doubt one of the best amulets in the game. In our first ring slot, we're using the Probability Cord. This ring increases crit damage by 30%. I consider this ring the most crucial in terms of the build's output of DPS. In our second ring slot, we're using the Stone of Balance. This ring increases all of your damage by 7%. In our third ring slot, we're using Faerun's Sigil. This ring generates 10% additional mod power every time we land a critical or a weak spot hit. Again, synergizing with the overall build. In our fourth ring slot, we're using Xania's Malice. This ring increases weak spot damage by 10% up to 3 stacks whenever we deal weak spot damage. Again, synergizing with the overall build. One additional ring worth mentioning is the Firestone. This ring increases fire damage by 10%. I will sometimes switch this out for a Faerun's Sigil if there is a specific enemy that I just want to melt a little bit quicker. In our relic slot, we're running the Enlarged Heart. This relic offers double speed healing in trade for our relic capacity being halved. I could think of plenty of times where I died because I couldn't get a heal off fast enough, and rarely think of the times where I died due to running out of heals. I feel like most players should make the switch from the Dragon Heart to the Enlarged Heart as soon as they max out their relic capacity. The fragments that we have equipped to our relic increase our range damage, range crit damage, and range crit chance. If you're wanting to get higher level fragments, you will need to level up your other archetypes. There are plenty of farming methods on YouTube, however I always recommend just playing the game. Thank you for watching this video. I enjoy making this content for you guys. Since this is my first Remnant 2 video, I don't know if it will do that well or not, so if you would help by showing your support and clicking that like button, I would truly appreciate it. I have many more builds for this game in the works, so make sure you subscribe so you can stay tuned, and hopefully I catch you in the next video.